So now let us just briefly discuss some other approaches to promote learning. So we've discussed active learning in fair amount of in fair detail. I don't think we need to go too much more than that. And so there are other approaches that you can use to promote learning, right? Active learning is established as a general concept. It is a general concept, though it is meant to mean now active learning in lectures. Okay. There are other approaches which I'm going to briefly mention. One is what is called is how do you organize your lecture. This is called bookend lectures. So bookend lectures is you give advanced what is the organization of your course, 15-20 minutes, and then you have one couple of minutes activity, 15-20 minutes of lecture, couple of minutes activity, 15-20, and you summarize there, right? So these are two sides. You have bookend. So this is called bookend lectures. I suppose many of us organize our lectures this way anyway, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. Bookend lectures, minute papers. They are used to assess. So these are not, we are not talking now of active learning techniques. We're talking other techniques now. So minute papers is used to assess the learning at the end of a lecture, typically. Okay, it's been around for a long time. The common approach is at the end of the class, you ask the students to write and hand in the two most important concepts you've learned today and what was the most confusing part today. So it gives, and you collect them as the students are leaving, and then you can you get immediate feedback on the lecture as to what the students did not understand. So next time you can correct it. It also forces the student to reflect on the lecture today and say, okay, these were the concepts covered. This is good. I understood it. I didn't understand it. So there's also a learning strengthening exercise happening. But again, the moment you have large classes, even 50-60, collecting 50-60, the responses and then sorting it out is kind of hard, right? So it's best to do it through tools today. Okay, the ALT app that I'm using, it has an option for minute paper. It also summarizes all the responses to say, hey, look, these are the best. These are the three which people have understood. These are the three where most confusion is there. So it summarizes it for the instructor. Okay, yet another concept is flipped classroom. Okay. It's a very technique that people have been talking about a lot. It's another way of making classroom active and engaging students. So here, the students read the facts and easy concepts on their own before coming to the class. In the class, you do a quick overview, and then the rest of the class is used for discussion, subtler points, problem solving, etc. Okay, it's becoming increasingly popular, but it requires students to come prepared. That's a big challenge. And how do you ensure that students have come prepared? So, of course, the natural answer is that at the start of the class, you do a quiz, which is graded. So that's probably the only way to ensure that they come having read it. In a small class, you can manage otherwise. Okay? But it requires faculty to prepare differently because you no longer talking about lectures, but you're going to talk about discussions. You're going to talk about what, perhaps a case study applying to that concept or examples that you're going to do. So your preparation is going to be very different if you want to use that. And we have to keep in mind that the student is supposed to spend only so many hours on a course. 3 hours in a lecture, about 5 hours, let us say, outside the lectures. 5, 6, 7, what have you. Now that you ask the student to read the something beforehand, that much time, reading time, you've already used up. So now your room to give more assignments, etc., becomes somewhat limited because you've used up the extra time that the student has. But on the other hand, you have used the lecture in a more effective manner. So it's a call. Some people like it, some people use it. I've used it, but in a smaller setting. 20, 30 students, there I've used it effectively. Never tried it for a large class. Okay, so these were some of the techniques for active learning. There is one more, peer learning. It's a broader concept. You can also use it for in-class active learning or making your lectures more engaging. But peer learning is a general concept. Okay, I'll first discuss peer learning in terms of how it may be used in the class, in the lecture itself. And then, but keep in mind that it is a general this thing. So see that what Felder talked about, think, pair, share, or he gave a different name to it. That also involves some peer learning. And another method that I mentioned was that the student explains to the other, to the neighbor, whatever concept that you ask them to, those are, and for solving a problem, that's also peer learning. So you can involve peer learning in active learning exercises that you do in class. So what is peer learning? It's an educational practice in which students interact with one another to attain educational goals. Okay. Otherwise, we've been talking about students interact with faculty to achieve goals. Here, students interact with one another to attain educational goals, right? Is where students learn from and with each other. Okay. But they are under the guidance from instructors. So it's not that you just leave them, hey, look, learn this. Doesn't work that way. So you have to work, they can work through new concepts and material, but the guidance and control and speed, all of this has to be done by the instructor. Okay. It's an effective in-class active learning also to engage students to improve their learning. And peer instruction or learning can augment teaching by instructor. It does not replace it. So it does not mean that your lecture goes away. It means that maybe some portions of it. So in your active learning exercise or a few minutes, you can use peer learning. Explain to each other. So do something to each other, right? In order to be effective, peer learning has to be properly choreographed by the instructor.